everyone, welcome to this week's Roundtable. Happy Diwali, Shubh Deepavali and Saal Mubarak. In Diwali week, signs of cheer for the economy in some figures. GST collections up once again, manufacturing numbers looking better, export shining, stock markets booming. And yet concerns over inflation, rising income inequalities, job creation, especially in the informal sector, and the troubles of small and micro enterprises. So the big question, is the economy now in a post-COVID period finally looking up, or are there still danger signals? Are we out of the woods, or is sunshine still eluding us? That's going to be our special focus, the big economy roundtable. We'll be joined by special guests, including the Chief Economic Advisor of the Government of India. But first, a quick overview of the state of the economy at the moment.
Markets are full, public sentiment appears to be up. Or is it?
The spending power has gone up. It seems to be an impact of the rising economy. People are spending lavishly this time.
कि महंगाई तो है ही और कोविड के चलते इन्फ्लेशन भी आया है, तो कहीं पे चीज़ें कर्टेल की जा रही हैं और कहीं पे वैसे ही चल रहा है क्योंकि पूजा का मामला होता है.
One of the dampeners as far as the middle class is concerned is the high fuel prices. Just a day before Diwali, the central government slashed excise duty on petrol by 5 rupees and diesel by 10 rupees. A Diwali gift probably prompted by the electoral setback suffered by the BJP in the by-polls in Himachal Pradesh, a state that is going to elections in a few months. The party lost all 3 assembly seats and 1 Lok Sabha seat in the by-elections. The government, however, is bullish on the economy. It has announced a plan to monetize national assets. The long-awaited divestment of Air India is now a done deal. There are other good signs as well. The government collected 1.30 lakh crore rupees in GST in October, the second highest since its implementation in July 2017. Manufacturing growth is the fastest in 8 months. Diesel sales crossed pre-COVID level for the first time in October. Petrol sale is 4% higher than a year ago. UPI transactions crossed $100 billion in a month for the first time. Exports are up for 11 months in a row. There are some concerns as well. Over 54.6 lakh jobs were lost in October. Unemployment rate is up from 6.9% in September to 7.8% in October. Over 60 lakh rural jobs were lost in October. What do these numbers mean? Is the glass half full or half empty? The jury is out. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me now on the Economy Roundtable is our first guest, the Chief Economic Advisor, Government of India, Dr. Krishnamurthy Subramaniam. Appreciate your joining us. Happy Deepavali, Shubh Deepavali to you, Dr. Subramaniam. Let me, before we come to the macro picture, come to the top of the mind, hot button issue of fuel prices. A day before Diwali and a day after by-poll significantly won in Himachal Pradesh, the government brings down petrol prices by 5 rupees, diesel by 10 rupees. This after allowing them to continuously go up to almost 30 rupees. How does one explain it? Is even fuel pricing subject to political convenience? And what does that say about our policy making?
Wish you a very happy Deepavali, Rajdeep, and happy Deepavali to all the viewers as well. The economics of this is what I will go into, Rajdeep. I think clearly the increase in the prices have been because of the increase in the crude oil prices across the globe. There are supply side issues that have shown up in the commodity prices, and that is what has reflected in India as well. Let's be very, clear that the increase in prices have been because of the increase in the crude oil price itself. Across other countries, and we've looked at the data, not only in India, but every other country, taxes on fuel are much higher, much greater than 60%. US is the only country which is an exception, and that is primarily because of the very strong automobile lobby there. But every other country has close, 60% plus, and that is because of climate change.
Sorry to intervene, but we were much higher than our neighborhood. You compare us to a Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, we were much higher. There's a sense that it was not linked to global crude prices, but because the government wanted to mop up revenues. Would that be fair to say?
So, you can choose whichever benchmark you want to, Rajdeep, to actually portray the story that you would like to. I would look at India as the 5th largest economy in the world. I have always compared not only for fuel price, but for every other aspect. I've always looked at the advanced economies as the benchmark, because that's where we want to head. And therefore, I'm absolutely comfortable, using the advanced economies as the benchmark. And I think, it's factually incorrect to say that the increase in prices was not because of the crude oil, price increase. It absolutely was because of the crude oil price increase. And now the reduction in the, excise duties, some at the central level and some in some other states will actually reduce, I will say, as I've been maintaining earlier as well, overall contribution to inflation comes a lot more from, from food inflation, less so from the fuel side, but there'll be some comfort that will come to the middle class, from this reduction.
The reason again that I'm pushing you on this at the very outset is because there's a sense that there was a restrained consumer mood among a certain section, particularly lower middle income groups. Consumer surveys done by Reuters and Access by India show that people were foregoing big ticket purchases. Pump prices of petrol and diesel up nearly 35% from a year ago, and cooking gas that continues to be high by more than 50%, hitting many of these smaller households. Do you believe that there is a consciousness that we have an economy where there are some people benefiting hugely, stock markets up, one sign of that, but there are others who've been hurting? There is almost a growing sense of inequality between those who have benefited hugely and those who have not.
Rajdeep, we can always continue focusing on the empty portion, of water in a glass, even if that is 3%, 4%. Last year, when, things were actually, when we were having the difficult times from the pandemic, I think I was okay with, with people focusing on the empty portion. Maybe it was 35, 40%, but now I think the continuing, focus on only those that are not as positive, I think is something which we have to actually get over. And let me say that the economy has indeed recovered significantly, as I had predicted last year. Let's focus on the good news as well. You are actually just continuing to focus on those that are not that great. The 5 fingers in a hand, never the same size. There are always differences, but I think, and that is always true for any sector of the economy, you will never have uniform growth across all sectors. That has never happened, and it never will. I think, rather than trying to actually make, a narrative out of something that is actually not very much there, let's focus on, aspects that actually have been done well. I think the price cut, excise duty cut, is something that can always be looked at as actually providing relief to the middle class. Let's make sure that we actually stick to the facts here, rather than trying to portray a particular narrative.
Okay, since you're saying let's look at both the positive news, I'm going to look at both positive and negative. Positive news: Purchasing Managers Index, PMI for manufacturing, came at 55.9, the highest since February 2021. GST collections, month of October, 1.3 lakh crores, the second highest since the GST was rolled out. So you get these numbers, and then I also get reports from MSME groups, the micro small enterprises, saying they are struggling at the moment. Their input costs continue to be high, and they have still not recovered from the pandemic. So interpret this for us. GST collections up, manufacturing numbers good, but also concerns and complaints of MSMEs. I know all 5 fingers are not the same, but we need to bring everyone. Surely you need inclusive growth.
Absolutely. See, let me point out, not only manufacturing, if you look at services, at 58 plus, the service sector PMI is a 10-year high. And that is primarily because of the 1 billion plus doses that we've done on the vaccination. Many people around June, July, actually had severe reservations about the possibility of even us getting to 1 billion doses. We've done that. We've provided doses possibly 2.5, 3 times that of the US population. So, and that is what has led to the significant recovery on the service sector side. And this is important because a lot of small firms especially rely on services because they provide, services. And so the significant improvement in the service sector is something that is very, very critical. Manufacturing, you've mentioned, manufacturing ever since September of last year, 2020 itself, has been growing very well. And that is because of the significant policy push. Let's not forget here that manufacturing, and growth in manufacturing particularly benefits the smaller firms because they are the ones that actually are part of the supply chain where, and contribute to that supply chain. So overall, a rising tide does lift all boats. There's no question about that. Some boats get lifted a little bit more than others, but at the same time, the policy, push of the government has been very consciously driven towards the, MSMEs. If you look at the most successful element of the Atmanirbhar Bharat program, which is the credit guarantee scheme that has been focused on the small firms. 4.5 lakh crores of credit has been given. So I think, it is important to focus on those aspects that have been the benefit of policy making as well.
Sure. But, this is where perhaps it becomes problematic, the difference between policy making and policy implementation on the ground. The struggles, the last mile struggles that continue to be there. I look at the CMI report, again you'll say glass half empty, but it says more than 5.46 million people employed in the formal and informal sector lost their jobs in the month of October 2021. You've got the Restaurants Association saying 25% of restaurants have closed down in the last 20 months during the pandemic. So, this is the problem at the moment. MSMEs say there is a big gap between policy making and policy implementation. The job figures still aren't as healthy as they should be, and incomes have been lost. How do you reconcile this? Is it that this is going to be a slow, drawn-out process?
No. In fact, if you look at the nature of production, and this is very important for us to take into account, the formal sector firms, typically use both capital and labor, and therefore the impact on them usually in crisis, not only in India but across the world, is greater because, when you actually cannot make your repayments, you may have to actually sell assets that impacts productive capacity. But thankfully for India, that has not happened with the formal sector actually doing really well. In contrast, the informal sector, because it relies primarily on labor, as soon as the economy starts coming back, the informal sector comes back to vibrancy much faster. And that is happening. And that is where I think the service sector, PMI, manufacturing as well, is quite critical. The numbers that you were actually focusing on, I think you have to keep that in mind, that this has happened across the world. The ILO came up with a report which basically showed that across the world, about 400 million jobs have been impacted. So let's not actually pretend as if all this has happened in a period when there has been no pandemic. I think, economics is always about benchmarking, and we have to actually factually benchmark correctly. There is no denying the fact that there has been differences in the impact. But at the same time, I think, as I said before as well, clearly the economic recovery is helping across the board, and especially helping some of these, more impacted sectors, especially take tourism, for instance. The way it has come down in previous interviews, we've talked about tourism. Actually, now it has come back very healthily, and that is something which is, very, very, very salutary.
No, it's coming back slowly. The point is, you've always spoken about a V-shaped recovery. Are you still maintain that? You still maintain that what you're seeing is a V-shaped recovery. Am I correct? You don't believe that this is a slow, move, graph up?
It's not me saying it now, Rajdeep. Actually, I said it at that time when the data was not in. Now the data speaks for itself. Just plot the GDP growth rates on a chart, and actually I think the data will speak for itself. I don't need to actually make that, because at the time when I spoke about it, it was actually a judgment call based on my courage of conviction, when every other commentator, both India and abroad, was actually spelling economic doom for India. At that time I said there's a V-shaped recovery. Now I don't need to say it. The data themselves speak about the V-shaped recovery.
But we are still not where we want to be in terms of pre-COVID levels. How soon do you see us reaching that that level. There are those who will, your predecessors, some of them take you back to 2016 and pre-demonetization. I'm not even going that far back. I'm saying pre-COVID levels. When do you really see the economy in a situation where we are back to pre-COVID levels?
Because you brought this up, Rajdeep, let me actually, highlight which economist worth his or her salt would deny that the kind of reforms that we've done will actually enhance productivity and investment in the economy. Which economist, his or her salt, worth his or her salt, would say that there hasn't been a recovery? If they're actually saying that there hasn't been a recovery, I think that's not economic. Maybe that's something else. Let's actually make that very, very clear. The data is very clear. There has been a very robust recovery. Not only, us. If you look at international reports, Barclays has come up with a report, Morgan Stanley, every other country, all these analysts are saying that among the emerging economies, India has had the sharpest recovery. If that is not testimony to what I actually had said, that there will be a V-shaped recovery, then what is? And let me also make it very clear that the recovery that has happened actually has been furthered by significant reforms. Let me again ask, which other economists would not be happy with the kind of reforms that have been done? These are unprecedented in terms of the factor market reforms. If these reforms are not being praised, I'm absolutely clear that it's not economics, it's something else that is being used there.
So therefore, in conclusion, what is the biggest positive that you see at the moment, and what remains for you the biggest concern?
See, the biggest positive is indeed the recovery, the robust recovery that has happened. And let me tell you that recovery, the prediction of that recovery was conditioned on why the economy slowed down. It was because of the financial sector problems, severe financial sector problems. I've said this before as well, but I'll reiterate it. It had nothing to do with the fundamentals of the economy. That's what led us to actually predict the V-shaped recovery. So the positive is indeed the resilience of the economy. What about the aspects that we have to improve on? Clearly, because our potential growth rate was much higher compared to the US, for instance. Potential growth for the US between 2.5%, our 6.5%. So obviously the loss due to the pandemic will be a little higher. When you are actually at a higher slope, the pandemic does have an impact. That's just a mechanical impact, which again, as economists, people need to take into account. We all economists talk about what is called selection bias. And I think we need to be very careful that we're not portraying data selectively, ignoring something as simple as the fact that the slope of growth, actually of the growth pattern, was different across India and other advanced economies. So the fact that India will take a little longer to actually catch up is because our growth rates are much higher than that of the advanced economies. That's a simple mechanical fact. So let's be very clear. Actually, a lot of the commentary that is coming in my opinion, actually, I understand as much economies as these folks as well, is not economics, it's something else.
Okay, I think those are very strong words, but you seem buoyant. You seem to be really believing that the worst is certainly over, and that you believe that you're sticking to your V-shaped economy claim that you've always been making.
The data confirms that, Rajdeep. The data confirms that. I don't need to say.
Okay, so for you, the glass clearly is half full. Once again, thanks very much, Dr. Subramaniam, for joining me. And once again, a happy Diwali to you and your family. Thank you.